Well, greetings, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be today, and welcome to the Atlona webinar. Our topic today is USB 101 for video conferencing. Let's get started with our broadcast. My name is Ken Eagle, and I am excited to be your presenter for today's webinar. Now, before we begin, let me just take a moment and review the GoToWebinar meeting control panel. You should see the attendee control panel and grab tab. The control panel contains panes that can be expanded or collapsed by clicking the little plus or minus or arrow button on the left side of each pane. To ask questions, please type your questions into the questions pane. All questions will be answered at the end of the webinar, and please note that today's webinar is being recorded and Atlona will send out the link to playback this broadcast after the webinar is complete. So with that, it is now time to begin our presentation. Right, short for Universal Serial Bus, USB is a plug and play interface that allows a computer or host device to communicate with peripheral and other devices. USB may also be used to send power to certain devices such as smartphones and tablets, as well as charge their batteries. USB can also be used to transfer data, audio, and video. And over the next few slides, we'll go over the different types of USB and how they are exactly used. All right, USB connections come in different shapes and sizes. We've got USB-A, USB-B, there's USB-C, mini, micro. They all refer to the type or the shape of the USB connector. Furthermore, each type of connector can be associated with a different version of USB firmware. I know that makes it very confusing, but you can have different firmwares associated with those different connector types. USB 3.0 is typically characterized by a blue plastic inner molding inside of the connector. A 2.0 connector typically has black or white inner molding. USB Type A connectors are backwards compatible, meaning that you can plug a 3.0 cable into a 2.0 port and the cable will run at the 2.0 spec speed. Although a 2.0 connector will also fit into a 3.0 port, it will only run at the max speed of 2.0. So this is kind of the law of lowest common denominator here. They're backwards compatible, but they'll only run at the speed of the max speed of the lowest common USB spec here. Now, as I mentioned on a previous slide, each type of connector can be associated with a different version of the USB firmware. Furthermore, each version of the firmware will offer different features. I know, confusing it just a little bit more. Let's look at an example. How about data speed transfer? USB 2.0 has a speed of 480 megabits per second, while 3.0 offers a speed of 5 gigabits per second, and 3.1 has a speed of 10 gigabits per second. Some versions of USB support even higher rates at 20 gigabits and 40 gigabits in the case of Thunderbolt 3. Now, USB cables have a length limitation of 5 meters or 16.5 feet. After that, you'll need an active USB cable to boost the signal. Now, when you're building an AV system with USB functionality, it's important to start at the host. Now, the host will be a USB-B port on Atlona products. This is where you'll connect your source device, such as a computer. Next, look at your USB source device. Newer laptops will use the USB-C type connector. This port can be used to transmit audio, video, and data, in some instances, even power. The USB mini connector is often found on HD-based extenders and endpoints and used to update firmware on Atlona devices. And the USB micro connector is often found on many of the peripherals, including touch panels and tabletop devices like mics and speakers. So now that we have a better understanding and a chart of the USB connector types and their function, Let's take a look at the USB ports that you'll find on Atlona products. Now, in this example on your screen, we're going to take a look at the Omega MS42 kit because it contains most of the common USB ports that you'll find on the majority of Atlona products. Let's start with the host port. This is where a presenter will connect a laptop. This connection will allow the laptop to interface with the other USB devices that are in the AV system. The host port will be USB type B. Next are the device ports, sometimes referred to as the hub. These are USB type A ports. This is where peripheral devices such as cameras and speakerphones will connect into the system. The USB-C ports provide immediate compatibility with laptops and tablets with USB-C ports supporting AV output. The USB-C port also allows for a clutter-free single cable connectivity to a PC for video conferencing and collaboration. The USB-C port will also support device charging on certain Atlona models. And the USB mini ports will conveniently allow for firmware on a device to be updated out in a field application. Let's focus in a bit on the USB-C, as USB-C is the newest type of connector. Unlike other forms of USB connections, USB-C cables are reversible, meaning they plug in properly regardless of whether or not they are upside down. Additionally, USB-C can transport video and audio signals along with data. USB is also useful for transporting power over the connection. USB 2.0 ports can send up to 2.5 watts of power, while USB 3.0 and 3.1 can transport up to 100 watts of power based on the USB spec. Now, Omega devices will still employ the USB 2.0 spec on those ports, even on the USB-C port. This will deliver up to 60 watts on that port. HD-based TPoE devices up to 15 watts each, and USB type A devices up to 2.5 watts per port. In an AV installation, USB is essential for communicating with peripheral devices in the room. Let's take a look at some common USB devices in an AV solution. USB cameras for video communication, USB speakers and microphones for audio communication, USB keyboard and mouse for control of an in-room PC, USB connections for presenter laptops, and USB connections for camera and sound bars for video conferencing and more. Now, this is by no means an exhaustive list of USB peripherals. This is an example of some of the more common ones, though, that you'll find in an AV application. Many Atlona solutions feature USB hubs for peripheral devices and host computers. This is essential for features in a unified communication or collaboration solution, such as soft codec conferencing with applications like Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Skype, BlueJeans, WebEx, GoToMeeting, and many others. With a USB hub, a presenter can make a host connection and communicate with all USB peripherals in the system. When a second presenter also makes a host connection, that connection too will have access to the other USB peripherals that are connected to the system. When a switch is made from one source to the other, the USB connection will switch along with the AV signal, making for a truly collaborative, unified solution. Very key feature in defining these circuit-based and AV over IP solutions from Atlona. So now that we've taken a moment and we've learned a little about USB and the USB ports on the Atlona products, let's take a look at several modern business solutions that you can employ today from Atlona using USB and AV solutions. What I'll do is I'll review some criteria for different applications, and then we'll take a look at the solution together. So first up, we'll take a look at huddle room or huddle space applications, where we'll typically have 1 to 4 participants, generally a single presenter, and in this application, you'll want control of USB devices such as a camera in the room for video conferencing, maybe some simple audio input or output, and zero user interface, meaning the room is going to be real easy to control, to start up and to shut down. All right, so what we're going to use for this is the Omega, the OME EX kit. This is an extender kit using transmitters and receivers. So on your drawing here, I've got a transmitter on the left. Notice right here, you've got a single port for the host. That's the host computer that will be able to connect in there. And on the transmitter, we have type A ports for peripheral devices, and we have them on the receiver as well. I'm circling them with the pen here. Now you look down here on the diagram I've got, the transmitter's up here on the left. My host computer is connected into that to the USB-B host port, and I've got a speakerphone connected into one of the USB-A ports on that transmitter. And down here, connected via a single HD-based connection, a receiver. And to that receiver, I've connected a camera to that USB type A port. So now that host computer has access to that speakerphone and that camera in that simple application. So for those smaller huddle space or huddle room meeting applications, you've got a nice low cost but powerful solution for AV with access to those USB peripherals in there using the Omega extender kit. All right, let's take a look at another example here. In this case, a collaboration space where we need compatibility with soft codecs like Skype and Zoom, plus the ability to switch AV and USB together between presenters. Also, we're looking for modern connectivity with ports like USB-C, HDMI, and DisplayPort with dual display outputs with scaling and the ability to have some control. So an application solution here could be the Omega MS42 kit, which we saw earlier. So looking at the diagram here, let me grab my pen once more. You see on the MS42, we have host ports here for the different presenters to connect to so they can communicate with those peripherals in the room. And we see those three host laptops down here connected to my 42. We've got a USB mic that's going to be connected to that 42. And downstream, connected into the HD-based output, we have a HD-based receiver. And to that receiver, we're also connecting a camera into that USB type A port. So now I have a nice video conferencing solution with multiple presenters. I can switch between presenters, changing their input, while still also giving the different presenters switching control between the speaker devices and the video device that are in the room as well. So a nice complete solution for a video conference application. All right, let's take a look at another one here. An active learning classroom, sometimes called a flipped classroom, where we have student pods and an instructor station with matrixed dual displays with scaling. And because I've got these student pods and these teacher pods, I'm going to be into a situation where I'm going to have multiple USB devices around the room. Could be a document camera, could be microphones, could be a room camera for some distance learning in there. So a solution to this application would be to use a product like the Omega PS62. And let's highlight some features on that too. On the PS62, you're going to find USB host ports, USB-B host ports for those presenters to connect into. You have a USB type A hub on here for peripheral devices. And notice on the back of the PS62, you've got HD-based inputs and HD-based outputs. So down here on the diagram, we can have inputs from student pods connecting into our PS62, which can be the teacher station. And we have downstream, you have receivers that are connected via HD-based as well. So we have other locations that can have USB type A peripherals connected, and those host computers can be located somewhere else and connect and use those USB devices in the system. So the PS62 is actually a very powerful solution for offering control of USB devices inside of those applications. All right, let's take a look at another application here, a conference room solution with BYOD. So dual matrix displays, BYOD meaning bring your own device with the ability to moderate sharing time and have both wired and wireless connectivity options. So this is a perfect application for the brand new Omega MS52 or the SW510W, which has been in the Atlona line for the past couple of years. Both have Wi-Fi capability. With the Omega MS52, it's a bit like the MS42 that we just looked at, where you're going to have the ability to switch peripheral USB devices with the AV switch that takes place. So on the 52, which we're looking at here, we've got host connections, we have USB hub, and looking at the back panel, you'll see there's an HD-base-T output on there as well. So from my diagram up here, we can have computers connected in to those host locations, and we can have a HD-base-T receiver connected downstream with, look here, both a USB camera and a USB soundbar connected to that receiver, allowing those host computers that are connected to the USB-B port to have access to control those USB peripherals. And when switching takes place for audio video, the USB devices will switch with it as well, given the presenter, the active presenter, control of those devices. So another great solution there where we're incorporating wireless into that as well. All right, one final example here. We've been looking at all circuit-based solutions using Omega. Let's take a look now at a solution using OmniStream, which is an all IP meeting space solution. So here we want to take advantage of existing network infrastructure. We want access to local and remote USB peripherals. So maybe there's USB peripherals in the room that the presenter needs to access. Maybe they're outside of the room, but still on the network. We want to be able to access those too. Could be a USB hard drive somewhere that we want to pull information off of. And we're using AV over IP because we're looking for flexibility in the design, and potentially down the road, this customer probably wants to expand or may have the potential for expansion and may want to add inputs and outputs into this solution. So AV over IP becomes a really good option here. So looking at the diagram here, and I'm going to pull up my pen one more time, we'll take a look at two devices I've added into the system. These are the OmniStream 311 and 324. These are devices for controlling USB peripherals on an IP network. Notice here on my host side, there is a LAN port, which will convert my USB traffic into IP. And on the hub side, another LAN port, which will also convert USB traffic into IP data. So here on this hub side, notice there's a USB-B port right here. This device will sit in the network down here and allow peripheral computers, or I'm sorry, host computers rather, to connect in and be able to have access. Looks like I'm highlighting an OmniStream encoder right here, but typically what we would have here is a 311, and that computer would connect into the 311 and now be converting USB traffic to IP traffic, routing around the network to this guy over here, which is a 324, which has 4 ports. So you can see here immediately, one computer can have access to 4 USB devices. And each one of these host devices can connect to up to 7 of these hub devices. And remember there's 4 USB ports on each of those hub devices. So 7 times 4 is 28. So one host computer could actually connect to up to 28 USB devices in this system here. So a lot of expandability, a lot of flexibility, and a very powerful solution now to be able to get control of USB in an IP solution. So now we've seen both circuit-based and IP-based control and solutions for USB in our conferencing solutions. All right, so if you haven't already joined up with Atlona Academy, I would encourage you to do that. It's completely free. You can visit atlona.com, click on the training tab. We have over 16,000 active learners who are in the education portal, going through various classes, learning about these solutions that we just covered here, learning about all of the different USB options, which are covered in our level 100 education course inside of there. So I encourage you to take those courses, learn more about the USB and video conferencing connectivity. We offer industry accreditation for all of our courses in there. Also, don't forget about our YouTube channel. All of these videos that we create, we host out on our YouTube channel, so you have easy access to them, whether you're in the office or in the field out on a job site. Learn no matter where you are, take our training experts with you, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and never miss out on the learning opportunities. All right, with that, let's switch gears now and answer some questions that have come in as we've been going through the presentation here. So give me a second as I read through some of these. I have let's see, it says I have here 2 devices connected to the USB host port. Can they both use the other USB devices at the same time? No, they would use them one at a time. So whoever the active presenter is will have access to that USB device. If we switch to the other presenter, then that presenter will have access to those devices. So great question there. Let me go through some more here. Can I use a regular USB hub at the receiver side if I have 3 USB devices at that end? Can I use a regular USB hub at the receiver side if I have 3 USB? What you would need to have at the receiver side would be an Atlona product. It has to be. And we do have some Omega devices that offer 3 or more ports on them. So I would suggest looking at one of those if we have that many USB devices. Also, if you're in an AV over IP solution, the 324 has 4 ports and you can use that. Okay, for the MS52 using the Wi-Fi connection, can I wirelessly use the USB devices that are connected to the hub ports? Yes, so if you're connected via Wi-Fi, you will have access, you will have to, Wi-Fi will connect you to the device and you will have the ability to present, but you'll still need to run a USB connection from your host computer to the host port that's available on the 52 so you can control those USB devices. All right. MS52 application in a conference room with BYOD devices and permanently installed desktop PC that will act as a host. If the desktop is already connected via USB, does the desktop also need to connect HDMI to the MSW? Yes, they would. So whether you're a host laptop being brought into the room or a dedicated PC in the room, you would need to have 2 connections. One is for your audio video, which could be HDMI or DisplayPort, and then a USB connection. Same thing with the laptop. Now, if the laptop or the host PC that were in the room had a USB-C connection, then you could use a single cable and connect just to the USB-C input. And from that USB-C input, you would then have access to the USB peripherals while still being able to stream your audio and video in over that USB-C port. And that's one of the advantages of USB-C, and taking advantage of that connector type is the upgraded functionality you have with that. Great question. All right, does using the AV over IP for USB add any timing or latency issues for the audio or video? Great question there. There is some latency in there. I don't have the spec in front of me to tell you what that is. It's very low in the OmniStream system though. OmniStream is very fast, so the latency is going to be among the lowest in the industry and likely not noticeable to the human eye. If you visit the OmniStream 311 or 324 product pages online, the spec should be listed on there. If it's not right on the page, it would be in the user manual. But after the video is done, the webinar is done, I'll look up that spec and then post it so you guys can see that as well. Good question, thank you. Do the OmniStream USB IP devices support USB matrixing if you have multiple host devices? Yes, so it's an any to any in there. So I could have multiple host devices and they could connect to the different USB devices that are in there. They are addressed, and you can manage that through the AMS software, which is built into the Velocity software. So you'll be able to manage it right through that AMS interface. Question here, will USB-C be taking over in the coming future? So more products in the industry are certainly driving to that USB-C standard. So we will see more and more adoption of USB-C. However, in the near future, we won't see a complete changeover to USB-C. We're still using the USB-B and A because there are so many devices out there that are using that connector today, and we want to be able to take advantage of those products that are already there in place. So for right now, we will not see a complete changeover to USB-C, but you will see more USB-C ports added to Atlona devices so that you have the ability to work with those newer devices as well. Yes, so someone's asking if we can get a copy of the presentation. Yes, you can absolutely have a copy of the presentation. Just send an email to, you can send that to me. My address is there on your screen right now. You've also got our North American and international inside sales addresses listed there. You can send an email to them and they can get a copy, a link rather, sent out to you so you can download the presentation. Great question. Also remember, this is also being recorded and we will post the recording as well. All right. Couple of these were broken up, so a couple of these questions didn't come through real good. So if I can't answer your question here, I'll look it up after the webinar and then send the answers back out or post them for you. Is there a capability to have video source bridging so that HDMI input on the PS62, for instance, can be seen by the host CPU on the conference call? So you would basically have to feed that video out and then loop it back as an input if you wanted them to be able to see that output. But natively inside the software, no, there's not a way to do that. Do you have any device options for USB 3.0 on the device side? USB 3.0 on the device side. I believe that exists for the PS62, but I think that's the only product in the line right now that has that. You'll see more of that coming as that USB adoptions grow, but for right now, it's the 2.0 spec that's primarily being used. Do you offer Thunderbolt Type-C that will do video over traditional USB peripherals? So no, at this point, we don't offer the Thunderbolt Type-C connection for that. The Thunderbolt is a little bit different. It does operate at a much higher speed. There's a shot of it on one of the earlier slides in the presentation today where you can see it, but currently we're not supporting the Thunderbolt. Are there limitations on USB cameras that can be connected to the Omega series, such as resolution maximums with USB 2.0 ports? So the answer here is because it's USB 2.0 ports, it's limited to 480 megabits per second. So if you're going to use a resolution that runs over 480 megabits per second, then you're going to run into an issue. At this point, it's still 480 megabits. So you're best to stick with 1080p cameras on that to make sure that you have the ability to transmit that. 4K cameras, I don't have any data in front of me to, I haven't tested a 4K either, but I'll look that up and get back to you on that to see if there's a limitation. We can get 4K. It may involve compression to be able to make that work because likely the resolution bandwidth could be too high for that, but we'll figure that one out and let you know. Is the USB LAN hub USB 2.0 or can it accept USB 3.0? So it is also USB 2.0 on the IP-based product. That's 311 and 312. So you can connect a 3.0 connector to it, but remember it's going to default to the 2.0 spec, which is going to give you maximum bandwidth of 480 megabits there. So someone was asking about extending different types of USB-C, including USB-C. The best way to extend USB right now isn't so much as extending USB as it is using HD-base-T transmitter and receiver and connecting USB at the other end, because you can run up to 100 meters over HD-base-T and then connect to a USB device on the other end. Because USB is still going to have limitations around that 16.5-foot mark before you have to go to amplified cables to make that work. So HD-base-T is going to give you the most distance on that. So I had a question here, not necessarily related to USB, but regards to OmniStream. Are there any drivers for OmniStream for other control systems? The answer is yes. OmniStream can be controlled by most other popular systems out there on the market. You can visit the OmniStream landing pages for the encoders and decoders, and they'll give you access to those codes there. Some of these questions are similar to ones we've already answered, so let me skip past a few of these. On the MS52, can I run the USB-C from a dedicated PC to the USB input on the RX connected to the HD-base-T input to the MS52? So on the MS52, you do not have an HD-base-T input. It's only an HD-base-T output. Only the PS62 has an HD-base-T input on it. But even on those HD-base-T inputs, they are for peripheral devices. So those are USB hub ports that are there. The host port is directly on the 52 itself. And so the host PC has to connect to a USB cable that's connected to the 52 itself. Another question, do customers still want a wired USB solution for AV conferencing as compared to wireless? Well, I think that a lot of people would like to have wireless. There's just limitations to how much we can do with it right now, but it's on the roadmap and coming down the road. It's something our product team is investigating, and watch for future information to address that as well. Okay, looks like for the most part we've hit all of the questions here. There are a few in here that I have to go back and review a little bit to make sure we can get you an answer for those. There's a few other I mentioned I will post you some additional comments for, and if I didn't get to your question on here, as I go back through these, I'll make sure we get answers back out to you on all of those, all right? So once again, we'll be sending out the recording to this webinar, plus it will be posted on our site. If you go to the webinars page at atlona.com, up in the upper right corner, there's a button that says Webinar Archive. Click on that, and you can see a history of all of our webinars, including this one, which will be posted on there by the end of today. We have another webinar coming up in 2 weeks. That will be on HDVS cameras from Atlona. It'll be titled 5 Best Uses for HDVS Cameras. Cameras obviously are a hot commodity right now with everyone working remote. So we're going to cover some of the cool features on these cameras and cover some of the most common uses of applications for these cameras. Also, take a look at the rest of our webinars. There's, I think, 6 more after this one throughout the rest of the year that dive deeper into more features. Not only cameras, but in the future one, we're going to cover use of green screens and cool applications with the cameras as well, and all kinds of really neat ways to use these cameras and the USB devices and conferencing as we're all learning how to be more creative in a remote environment. So you don't want to miss those. If you do, register anyway so we can send you out the link to the recordings for those, okay? All right, thanks again everyone for joining me today. Truly appreciate your time and look forward to hopefully seeing you on the road someday soon. Take care and thank you very much.